Hey everybody, this one's about Churchianity and the Roman cult too. First of all, I'm not a liar. I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. So you should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research. I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything and I'm open to any ideas. This presentation is called Churchianity because most so-called churches are not Christian and have no idea what it means to be Christian. Most churches are interested in making money and trumpeting the party line. Most churches are actually satanic. They teach half truths and falsehoods. They're more interested in rituals and what's right or wrong, and they're more interested in money. That's usually the almighty thing. And get a load of this Time magazine, the new Roman Empire, the global reach of the pimp, or I meant Pope. No, he's a pimp. Civil law, Roman civil law are convertible phrases meaning the same system of jurisprudence, that rule of action which every particular nation, commonwealth, or city has established peculiarly for itself, more properly called municipal law, to distinguish it from the law of nature and from international law. And that's that's Roman law, civil law. Roman civil law falls under your city codes. Yet still it was found difficult to set bounds to ecclesiastical ingenuity. Okay, that's the Roman cult, folks. For when they are driven out of all their former holes, they devised a new method of conveyance by which the lands were granted not to themselves directly, but to nominal fiefs to the use of the religious houses. How convenient. Thus distinguishing between the possession and the use and receiving the actual profits, while the season of the land remained in the nominal fief, who was held by the courts of equity, then under the direction of the clergy. That's the Roman cult, folks. Isn't that convenient? To be bound in conscience to account to assesticate use for the rents and emoluments of the estate. That's taxes, folks. So the Roman cult gets to have the whore, the clerk, masquerading as a judge on the bench, and they get to decide whether there's a contract or not. How convenient. And it is to these inventions that our practitioners are indebted for the introduction of uses and trusts, the foundation of modern conveyancing. And it's still the foundation of modern conveyancing. This is taken from Tomlin's Law Dictionary, 1835 edition, volume 2, under the definition of mort main. And this is the Sestakay V Act of 1666, an act for redress of inconveniences by want of proof of deceased persons beyond the sea or absenting themselves, upon whose lives estates do depend. And this is in England. So if you're in the Roman cult, if you're dealing with the Roman cult, you're at sea. Okay, that's all contracts. And at the bottom here, the Sestakay V remaining beyond sea for 7 years together and no proof of their lives, judge in action to direct a verdict as though the Sestakay V were dead. If such person or persons or whose life or lives such estates have been or shall be granted as aforesaid shall remain beyond the seas or else were absent themselves. So again, with you're dealing with the Roman cult, you're dead. That's the only thing they deal with. It's all contracts. It's all commerce. It's all business. This is page 2 of the Sestakay V Act. This realm, so you go back to here. So shall remain beyond the seas or else were absent themselves in this realm by the space of 7 years together, and no sufficient evidence proof to be made of the lives of such person or persons respectively in any action commenced for recovery of such tenements by the lessors or reversioners. In every case in every such case, the person or persons upon whose life or lives such estates depend shall be accounted as naturally dead, and every action brought for the recovery of said tenements by the lessors or reversioners, their heirs or assigns, the judges before whom such action shall be brought shall direct the jury to give the verdict as if the person so remaining beyond the seas under the Roman cult or otherwise absenting himself were dead. So this is all talking about the Sestakay V Trust. So it talks about reversioners. I think everything else in there is pretty well the lessor, heirs, assigns, reversioners. What's reversioners? That's the only one that really is kind of makes you wonder what it is. A residue of an estate left in a grantor to commence in possession after the determination of some particular estate granted out by him. The return of land to the grantor and his heirs after the grant is over. So it reverts back to you. A reversion is a vested interest estate and arises by operation of law only. In this latter respect, it differs from a remainder, which can never arise either except by will or deed. A reversion is said to be an incorporeal hereditament. That's Bouvier's Law Dictionary, 1885 edition. Reversionary interest. The interest which one has in the reversion of lands or other property, the residue which remains to one who has carved out of his estate a lesser estate. See reversion, an interest in the land when possession shall fail. So you have an interest, you're not living in it. Maybe you leased it out or rented it or something. Anyways, so this is Bouvier's Law Dictionary again. So the Sestike use, this is now United States, okay? This is taken from DC Code. Chapter 56, 31 Stat 1432, absence of 7 years. Section 252, 31 Stat 1230, where it says the presumption of death. If any person shall leave his domicile without any known intention of changing the same, shall not be returned or heard from for 7 years from the time of his own leaving. Say they presume you are dead. Corporation shall be deemed to include any company, trust, so-called Massachusetts Trust Association, incorporated or unincorporated, which is organized to carry on business for its own profits or that of its members, and have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest in any company, trust, and it goes through the same definition, but it doesn't have shares of capital or capital stock or certificates of interest. And the second definition would cover the Sestike Trust. This is Papal Bull Dum Diversus, 14th of June, 1452. I should say 18th of June, 1452. It authorized Alfonso V of Portugal to reduce any Saracens, which is Muslims, and pagans or any other non-believers, okay, so that's anybody that's not Catholic, to this facilitated to perpetual slavery. Okay, this facilitated the Portuguese slave trade from West Africa is what it did. Now, I want to be the first one to say that I don't want to rail on Catholics. This is talking about the Roman cult. This whole video is talking about the Roman cult. There's many Catholic people that are victims of this as much as anybody else. And there's wonderful people who happen to be Catholic. Actually, I didn't believe this for a long time. It was friends of mine who happened to be Catholic that were telling me about it, and I just had trouble believing it until it just became so obvious. Anyways, the same Pope wrote Bull Romanus Pontifex on January 5th, 1455, so that's 3 years later, to the same Alfonso as a follow-up to the Dum Diversus that extended to the Catholic nations of Europe dominion over discovered lands during the Age of Discovery, along with sanctifying the seizure of non-Christian lands. It encouraged, actually it should be non-Catholic lands, it encouraged the enslavement of native non-Catholic peoples of Africa and the New World. We weighing all in singular the premises of due meditation, and noting that since we had formerly by our letters, other letters of ours granted among other things free and ample faculty to the aforesaid King Alfonso to invade, search out, capture, vanquish, subdue all Saracens and pagan whatsoever and other enemies of Christ, actually enemies of the Roman cult, wheresoever placed, and the kingdoms, dukedoms, principalities, dominions, possessions, and all movable and immovable objects whatsoever held and possessed by them, and to reduce their persons to perpetual slavery, and to apply and appropriate to himself and his successors the kingdoms, dukedoms, counties, principalities, dominions, possessions, goods, and to convert them to his or their use and profit. By having secured the said faculty, the said King Alfonso, or by his authority the aforesaid infant, justly and lawfully has acquired and possessed and doth possess these lands, islands, harbors, and seas, and they do of right belong and pertain to King Alfonso and his successors. In 1493, Alexander VI issued, which is about another, 40 years later, issued the bull Inter Sureris, stating one Christian nation did not have the right to establish dominion over lands previously dominated by another Christian nation, thus establishing the law of nations. Together, the Dum Diversus, the Romanus Pontifex, and the Inter Sureria came to serve as the basis and justification for the doctrine of discovery and the global slave trade of the 15th and 16th centuries and the age of imperialism. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. And when the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. And that's a quote from Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. Copies of these documents can be found in my private group at Yahoo called Administering Your Public Servants. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information, shares a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries and other books and forms, contact me privately at engineerwin@yahoo.com. And donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extreme less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the military script, the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. In order for the few to control the many, the few must conceal true history and hoard true knowledge while indoctrinating the commoner with clever fairy tales to ensure that fiction becomes truth and truth becomes fiction. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument, U.S. Supreme Court. The corporation clones people and creates persons. The United States of America, on the left you have the Republic. The Constitution has natural rights for real men and real women. It's lawful. And then on the right you have corporation grants privileges to the slaves. Artificial entities, including corporations, persons, residents, inhabitants, etc., defined and described by U.S. Code, statutes, and ordinances, includes Congress, courts, and the executive branch. And so national government equals democracy, okay? That's where you have the democracy and you have the republic and the democracy. And so which one are you in? How are they treating you? If they're treating you like one of their slaves, then you volunteered into their little democracy. Corporate ownerships of persons via law. On the left, you have American citizen, a natural person, a flesh and blood human being created by nature, not by the legislature, entitled to all personal privileges, has inalienable rights secured by the Constitution, not subjected to unconstitutional corporate laws, protection from the tyranny of the majority. And so they spell your name in upper and lower case. And then, and it shows down there, if you go and look at the, it's got even birth certificates at the bottom. And then the U.S. citizen is a legal fiction, an artificial person, waives all inalienable rights, corporate status, and income, not entitled to personal privileges created by the corporation. The United States acts as an agent for the purposes of collecting revenue. A corporate citizen and a representative of a collective group assumes the rights, duties, and privileges of the artificial entity or association of which they are agents or officers of, and they are bound by its obligations. Did you know that when you were born, your parents, your brain-dead idiot parents, register you with the government as a corporation by signing a birth certificate? In a few years, your corporation will receive a taxpayer ID number called a Social Security number, NIS number, IRD number, etc., depending on where you are. So this is so you can be used as collateral for the government to acquire debt. Your labor, time, and energy backs up the national debt. You are stock. You are owned. You are a slave, thanks to your brain-dead idiot parents. Did you know that when you're born, your parents register you with the government as a corporation by receiving and signing a birth certificate? In a few years, your corporation will receive a taxpayer ID number called a Social Security number. This is so you can be used as collateral for the government to acquire debt. That's right, you and your labor, time, and energy is what backs up the national debt. You are stuck because of your brain-dead idiot parents. You are property of Rome. Your Roman document of ownership is called a Social Security card. It's a badge of slavery. Which United States are you in? There's been created a fictional federal state of XXX within a state. See Howard versus Sinking Fund of Louisville, U.S. Supreme Court, and that's cited in Swartz versus O'Hara Township School District, a Pennsylvania court case. The question to be determined is whether this state, so respectable, whose claims soar so high, is amenable to the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court of the United States. This question, important in itself, will depend on others more important still, and may perhaps be ultimately resolved into one no less radical than this. Do the people of the United States form a nation? By that law, the several states and governments spread over our globe are considered as forming a society, not a nation. So this is Chisholm versus Georgia, 1794, and what the purpose I put this in here is in 1794 there were no nations on this planet except maybe the United States of America. This is the same formula that these Roman cult Satanists have been using for centuries. US, Canada, all other countries, the central banks are not actually countries, but in fact corporations. The UK Queen and the rest of the economic royalist family members are the shareholders of USA Inc., Canada Inc., etc. Don't believe it? Google Canada Inc.'s business identification number and US Inc., USA Inc.'s business identification number, and check out 28 U.S.C. 3002. It's right there in front of you. Most people don't have the courage to share this. This little country that's almost no one has heard about funded all sides of World War I, World War II, and will start World War III if we do not stop them. And that's the City of London. It's an area in downtown London that has a wall around it. And if you ever watch the convening of the Imperial Parliament, there's a gate called Temple Bar. It was never conquered by William the Conqueror. There's a gate called Temple Bar that the Queen goes to and gets permission to enter into so she can go down there and do the throne speech. This is the same tactic the Roman cult has been using for centuries. They create a corporation, they circulate fake money to bankrupt the corporation, they seize the corporation, they put the corporation under martial law, which destroys common law. They infiltrate their bail priests as their bar members, their so-called judges and lawyers. They hire thugs, give them weapons, tell them to go out and assault anybody they want with their corporation. And then the bail priests and the courts and the so-called courts call it a contract. This is U.S. Congress, Roman conquest, 24th of September 2015, when the pimp went to speak to Congress. And now that red text there is what we're going to talk about. It's kind of hard to read, so I'm going to can be switching back and forth through pages here. Dictatorship equals Roman cult, folks. So we're going to the top left-hand corner of the text there. It says Roman Achaea, military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. And that's pointing at that staff right here with the eagle on top, which is a symbol of the Roman cult, by the way. The second one, devout Roman Catholic honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University. And that's this text right here, and it's pointing at Biden. And the third one is the Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapon, symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. And that's this text right here, and it's pointing at these fascists right here. It's fascist. It's a fascist dictatorship is what it is. And that's all thanks to the Roman cult. And then the last one is devout Roman Catholic trained by Jesuits, installed first Jesuit chaplain to the house. And that's this one right here, pointing at Boner or Beaner or whatever his name was. He was Speaker of the House at the time. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Of course, they don't want anybody being able to defend themselves. They want to be able to murder you with impunity. They want to be able to drink your children's blood. They want to have their child sacrifices. Why do you think Donald Trump's first international trip includes the Roman cult on the itinerary? Why do you think the Pope looks so angry in his pictures with Donald Trump? Roman cult equals murder and slavery. These people are Satanists. There's the top picture. He's having a good old time with Obama, the Satanist, and now he's with someone that might bring some justice on his head. He's not so happy about that anymore with Trump. The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is a general of an army, not a mere father abbot of a monastery. And that's Napoleon Bonaparte, you know, in the Napoleonic Wars, I guess, is when he said that. And you got the Pope meeting all of these people. He's a Jesuit. He's a Satanist. Sacrificing freedoms for promises of safety and security is central to the worship of all false gods, and like all false gods, the sacrifices will never be enough. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Of course, doesn't want anybody being able to defend himself. A gun-free zone. The most dangerous place you can be is in a gun-free zone. Gun-free zones is where only criminals and tyrants have guns. Isaiah 45:7. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. The UN is a mask for evil to hide behind. Their Bible and Quran is no different. Go ye then into all the world and take possession of all lands in the name of the Pope. He will not accept him as vicar of Jesus and vice regent on earth. Let him be accursed and exterminated. That's a short little excerpt from the Jesuit oath. And notice in this statue they got on the right there, this Jesuit has his foot on someone that they've assaulted. The Jesuit oath, another part of it. Small part of it. I further promise and declare that I will, when opportunity present, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants and liberals, that's anybody that's not Catholic, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth, and that I will spare neither age, sex, or condition, and that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls, in order to annihilate forever their inexorable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, see, they're cowards too. Okay, they won't do it openly if they think something might happen. I will secretly use them the poison cup, the strangulating cord, the steel or the poniard, the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. They're Satanists. They will murder you. They do all the time. The Jesuit Order. And this is Library of Congress, card number 66-43354. I, now in the presence of Almighty God, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Blessed Michael, the Archangel, the Blessed St. John the Baptist, the Holy Apostles, Peter and Paul, and all the saints, sacred hosts of heaven, and to you, my ghostly father, the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, founded by Ignatius Loyola in the pontification of Paul III, and continued to the present to do by the womb of the Virgin, the matrix of God, the rod of Jesus Christ, to declare and swear by his holiness, the Pope, is Christ's vice regent and the true and only head of the Catholic or universal church throughout the earth, and that by virtue of the keys of binding and loosing given to his holiness by my Savior Jesus Christ, he hath power to depose heretical kings, princes, states, commonwealths, governments, and all being illegal without his sacred confirmation, and that they may be safely destroyed. Why do you think they get permission from the Roman cult when they go and attack ISIS? That's exactly what they did. It was in the news. I do declare further that I will help and assist and advise all and any of His Holiness agents in any place wherever I shall be, and do my utmost to extirpate the heretical Protestant and liberal doctrines and to destroy all their pretended powers, legal or otherwise. I do further promise and declare that notwithstanding I am dispensed with to assume any religion heretical to the propagating of the Mother Church interests, to keep secret and private all her agents' counsels from time to time, as they may instruct me, and not to divulge directly or indirectly any word, writing, or circumstances whatever, but to execute all that be proposed, given in charge, or discovered unto me by you, my ghostly father. Okay, so what he's saying there, that they will take on any religion. They will sneak around. They're Satanists. I do further promise and declare that I will have no opinion or will of my own. Gee, that sounds like an order follower. Or any mental reservation, whatever, even if as a corpse or cadaver, but unhesitatingly obey each and every command that I may receive from my superiors in the militia of the Pope and Jesus Christ. That I will go to any part of the world whatsoever without murmuring, and will be submissive in all things whatsoever communicated to me. I do further promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants, and liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth. And that I will spare neither sex, age, nor condition. I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush the infants' heads against the wall in order to annihilate forever their inexorable race. And when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poison cup, that strangulation cord, the secret of the poniard, steel of the poniard, of the leaden bullet, regardless of the honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons whatsoever may be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed so to do by any agent of the Pope or Superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. Anyways, this is in the congressional record. The Hidden Hand. The Jesuits are a military religious order of the Roman Catholic Church, Masonic and other oaths, the sign of the Master of the Second Veil. The Hidden Hand lets other initiates know that the individual depicted as part of the secret brotherhood, and that his actions were inspired by the Masonic philosophy and beliefs. Furthermore, the hand that executes the actions is hidden behind cloth, which can symbolically refer to the covert nature of Masonic actions. They're Satanists, okay? They lie, they steal, they cheat. Lucifer resides in the Vatican. Okay, that's what that upside down cross is all about. The Star of Moloch. Okay, Baal, Saturn, Nimrod during the ancient Babylonian era. These names were worshipped and invoked as one god known as Lucifer, to which innocent kids were sacrificed, and is still going on to this day. And the Vatican has passed on this deception, repackaging Christianity in a form of paganism. Vatican New World Order. Herman von Rompuy, the president of the European Council, stated recently, "We're all Jesuits." He was referring to those prominent European leaders with whom he is developing the Roman Catholic architecture for the future Europe. It creates unbreakable ties, so there is a Jesuits International, and here they are having a good old time. Whenever this seal is openly displayed, the Jesuit order is in control, and that's this IHS symbol, okay? And this is number 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister of England lives. Ninth Circle exposed. The Ninth Circle Secret Society exposed Jesuit Pope Francis Bergoglio was found guilty of child trafficking, rape, and murder. Defendants Pope Francis Bergoglio, Catholic Jesuit Superior General Adolfo Pachon, and Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby were found guilty of rape, torture, murder, and trafficking of children. 5 judges of the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels determined that the crimes occurred as recently as 2010. Since last March, over 48 eyewitnesses have come forward to testify before this International Common Law Court of Justice court about the defendants' activities as members of the Ninth Circle Satanic child sacrifice cult. 50,000 Canadian children murdered. International Tribunal emits historic guilty verdict against Joseph Ratzinger. Catholic Church officials are pederasty, pedophilia, child trafficking, experimentation, torture, infanticide worldwide. All for a pope-free world. Guilty. Guilty. The bitch, Harper, and the pimp. Whistleblower. Vatican is practicing child sacrifice. During the ceremony, they sacrificed a little boy. After that, the man dressed in scarlet went to the side of the room, and I had to kneel before him and kiss his ring and swear my undying loyalty to the New World Order. And that's Savali, author of Breaking the Chain, Breaking Free of Cult Programming. Okay, so again, this is only one of the testimonies. They sacrificed a little boy. They cut his throat and drink his blood. It's just absolute abomination. Know your popes, number 9. 37 of his own clergy members witnessed and professed against John the 23rd on charges of fornication, adultery, incest, sodomy, simony, theft, and murder. He also had a harem of mistresses in Boulogne numbering 200, consisting mostly, if not entirely, of nuns. Know your popes, number 1. After massacring the entire population of the Italian town of Palestrina, Boniface VIII indulged in menages with a married woman and her daughter and became renowned through Rome as a shameless pedophile. He famously declared that having sex with young boys was no more a sin than rubbing one hand against the other. The poet Dante reserved a place for him in the 8th circle of hell. Of course, Pizzagate is a fake news story because while pedophiles have managed to become active and flourish in for decades in marketing, medicine, film, the Catholic Church, Norwegian government, British entertainment, sports, high finance, the Republican Party, it's completely absurd that they could be active in the Democratic Party. So let's keep those mainstream media's stories mocking suspected child rape in D.C. flowing. The last thing that we want in this country is the public taking child sex abuse seriously. Funny how these two serial pedophiles both got honored by the Queen, but usually pretty thoroughly MI5 background checks failed to identify them as such. Funny that. Yeah, it's amazing how that works, eh? With all this surveillance and spying, how could pedophiles, rapists, murderers, war criminals, violent drug cartels, slave traders, despots, demon-worshipping child killers, terrorists, traitors, etc. be unhampered in their activities unless those are the ones running the surveillance and spy grids? Ain't that the truth? Why do you think that's going on? Pedophilia is good for the children. Isn't it weird how a government that spies on everyone all the time never seems to expose child trafficking rings? No, why would they want to do that? The pagan Roman Empire never fell, it just changed its name and hid by infiltrating Christianity. The great error of academic historians is the belief that the Roman Empire fell. It never fell. It still controls the Western world through the Vatican and the mafia. And get a load of this. This is today's direct descendants of Roman emperors, Ptolemaic lineages, root lineage, bands of Magog, Roman Empire built on Babylonian Kabbalistic Masonic tyrannical doctrine. These Roman emperor families created the Roman RCC in the Vatican, Masonic orders, Freemasonry, the Knights Templar, the Knights of Malta, the Rosicrucian order, the Jesuit order, and Zionism. And get a load of this. This is Jesuits rule, global Jesuits assistancies. There's the Central European assistancy, the East Europe assistancy. Anyways, the papal occult, the Noble Council. Now let's look at these. The Farnese is right here. This is the Farnese, and that's the number one in the middle there. Colonna. right there. That's that one. Medici, right there. It's all the same gang that's running the Roman Catholic, the Roman cult. That's exactly what's going on. I could go through them all and show you, but I got to keep moving. The pagan Roman Empire never fell. It just changed its name and hid by infiltrating Christianity. Unprecedented amount of child porn discovered in the Vatican. Pope hands soft sentences to pedophile priests to be merciful. What mercy for the children? Just remember, when large corporations do something so horrible, there's enough outrage to bankrupt the company. The corporation will trot out a PR guy with a huge smile and tell you everything you want to hear. The Rothschilds have been part of the Jesuit order since way before 1776. Maltese cross indicates membership and allegiance to the sovereign military order of Malta, a Masonic order created in 1099 AD by direct descendants of the Roman emperors, of which a Jesuit order is a brand. Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 2, page 497, states the Rothschilds are guardians of the papal treasure. If you start off at the beginning, the upper area, meanwhile, the nationalistic and reactionary parties in France desired to counterbalance the Semitic influence of the Rothschilds by establishing a banking concern that should essentially be Catholic. And then if you go to the bottom, in a somewhat curious sequel to the attempt to set up a Catholic competitor to the Rothschilds, that at the present time, the latter are the guardians of the papal treasure. So that's where the Rothschilds get all their power, because they're guardians of the papal treasure. There are only 9 countries left in the world without a Rothschild central bank: Russia, China, Iceland, Cuba, Syria, Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, and Hungary. Isn't it funny that we're always at war with these countries? Vatican's Holocaust, sensational account of the most horrifying religious massacre of the 20th century. Avril Manhattan was the world's foremost authority on Roman Catholicism and politics. A resident of London during World War II, he operated a radio station called Radio Free and broadcasting to occupied Europe. He was author of over 20 books, including the bestseller The Vatican and World Politics, twice Book of the Month, going through 57 editions. He was a Great Briton who risked his life daily to expose the darkest secrets of the papacy. His books were #1 on the Forbidden Index for the past 50 years, and in 2006 it was 70 years. Vatican's Holocaust is not a misnomer, an accusation, or even less a speculation. It's a historical fact. Rabid nationalism, this dogmatism are the two main ingredients. This is only just one of the more recent events where the Roman cult has murdered literally thousands, tens of thousands of people. During the existence of Croatia as an independent Catholic state, over 700,000 men, women, and children perished. Many were executed, tortured, died of starvation, buried alive, or were burned to death. Hundreds forced to become Catholic. Catholic padres ran concentration camps. Catholic priests were officers of the military corps, which committed such atrocities. 700,000 on a total population of a few million. Proportionally, it would be as if 1/3 of the U.S. population had been exterminated by a Catholic militia. Anyways, you can read this thing. An armed Syria could have easily prevented this Holocaust. That's why the Roman cult doesn't want you to have a gun, okay? Because he doesn't want you to be able to defend yourself against this kind of stuff. Contact information, my blog is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living and Sovereignty International. Actually, the Sovereignty International profile is deleted. My Facebook community page is deleted. My private group called Sovereignty International on Facebook is being deleted. It takes time to ban 17,000 people off your group. My Yahoo private group is called Administering Your Public Servants. My Google private group is called Administering Your Public Servants. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International, BitChute, and Patreon. We therefore decline to overrule the opinion of Chief Justice Marshall. We hold that the District of Columbia is not a state within Article 3 of the Constitution. And in other words, cases between citizens of the district and those of the states are not included in the catalog of controversies over which Congress could give jurisdiction to the federal courts by virtue of Article 3. In other words, Congress has exclusive legislative jurisdiction over citizens of Washington District of Columbia. And through their plenary power nationally covers those citizens even when in one of the several states of the district expands for the purpose of regulating its citizens wherever they go throughout the states of the Union. And that's U.S. Supreme Court, 1948. International law rule adopted for areas of federal legislative jurisdiction federalizes state civil law, including common law. The rule serves to federalize not only statutory, but the common law of a state. State and federal venue discuss the civil laws effective in an area of exclusive federal jurisdiction or federal law, notwithstanding their derivation from state laws. So all state laws are actually federal laws. And this is taken from jurisdiction over federal areas within the states. Report of the Interdepartmental Committee for the Study of Jurisdiction over Federal Areas Within the States, Part 2, a text of the law of legislative jurisdiction submitted to the Attorney General and transmitted to the President, June 1957, pages 158 through 165. Do not try and bend the government. That's impossible. Instead, only realize the truth. There is no government, only banks and corporations. Vid.me shut down on 15th of December, and YouTube channel called Sovereignty International is deleted. I made the exclusive content available on my website. I have 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. $29.99 a year for the videos only, and $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. Now, there are limitations on what I can do as far as consultations are concerned, because I'm not a liar. Well, I meant an attorney. Well, actually, it's a liar. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. People on other previous subscription plans will remain on that plan as long as they renew it. The unlimited consultations does not include phone calls. That will be extras. Does not include babysitting. Send me an email every 5 minutes. Goes beyond. Does not include preparing documents or reviewing documents. The only power that these New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people fighting the battles too. So if you want to subscribe as a donation, it's a modest donation, there's no doubt about it, but it's appreciated. Every little bit helps. A whole bunch of people chipping in a little bit adds up pretty fast. I'm currently publishing 1 video a week. The top link is to the videos, the public videos. That's on my website. There's a page that lists all the videos that are available for that are YouTube videos. And then the second link is for subscribers. Some of the exclusive content is bar members, number 4. Arlington Private Information Share, that's 9 videos by itself. Land deed training, estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll road notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training, revocation of signature, revocation of voter registration training, criminal complaint training, lawsuit training, other training requests. Depending on, I'm available to the lawsuit training. I haven't got up there yet. There is some criminal complaint training that's up there, and there's going to be more. And any other training that people might think might be worth doing, I'll consider it. All forms, files, and other instructions are available for free on my 2 private groups at Yahoo Groups and Google Groups. And all exclusive content's available on my website, and you can buy a subscription there. And the exclusive videos are not on YouTube anymore. YouTube was blocking my access to the videos, and so I took them down. And they're just on there. I have a private video server. So There are no jails at common law. All jails are private. In England, the Archbishop of Canterbury owns all the prisons. Jails a benefit because common law penalties are very severe. There are people who waive the benefit. Pecuniary cause. Such a cause arises due to withholding ecclesiastical dues. Okay, so this is all tied into the Roman cult. All jails are tied into the Roman cult, or the doing or neglecting some act relating to the church whereby some damage accrues to the plaintiff towards obtaining satisfaction for which he is permitted to institute a suit in a spiritual court. Okay, so all of these courts are ecclesiastical courts. Watch my video about that. Such, for instance, are the subtraction and withholding of tithes from the thief, the non-payment of extortion to the thieves. This is taken from Holthouse, A New Law Dictionary, 1850 edition. Penance is a punishment imposed for a crime by the ecclesiastical laws. It's an acknowledgement of the offense. Penance may be changed into a sum of money to be applied to pious use called commuting. These people are nothing but thieves. Penitentiary has meant a penitent or an ordainer of penances, a place for penitence. So they send you to jail for the rest of your life so that you can repent. Anderson's Law Dictionary, 1889 edition. Assumpsit. In its origin, an action of tort, assumpsit was soon transformed into an action of contract, becoming afterwards a remedy where there was neither tort nor contract. Based at first only upon the express promise, it was afterwards supported upon an implied promise and even upon a fictitious promise. They are thieves. They assault you with one of their quasi-contracts. Introduced as a special manifestation of the action in the case, it soon acquired the dignity of a distinct form of action, which superseded debt, became concurrent with account, with case upon bailment, a warranty, and bills of exchange. Notice those are all commercial terms. And competed with equity in the case of the essentially equitable quasi-contracts. Okay, they're thieves. This is Black's Law Dictionary, 8th edition. Both in Roman and English law, there are certain obligations which were not in truth contractual, but which the law treats as if they were. They were contractual in law, but not in fact, being the subject matter of a fictitious extension of the sphere of contract. Again, they're thieves. Constructive quasi-contracts are based solely upon the legal fiction of law. So what they have to do is they got to assault you with their Roman cult sestike trust. And once they can do that, then they can go ahead and sell you into slavery and do all the stuff that they do. It's a well-settled rule of law that he who seeks the benefits of contract must also assume burdens. Yeah, these Satanist thieves twist it around like they all sorts of ways. A quasi-contractual action presupposes acceptance and retention of a benefit by one party with full appreciation of the facts under circumstances, making it inequitable for him to retain a benefit without payment of its reasonable value. They get to sell you in jail. That's a benefit. That's how these Satanists operate. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to evince how true it is that states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how true it is that his creatures and servants have first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. A state like a merchant makes a contract. A dishonest state like a dishonest merchant willfully refuses to discharge it. They are thieves. And this is the World Council of Churches website, together with 349 churches, denominations, and church fellowships in more than 110 countries and territories throughout the representatives, representing over 560 million so-called Christians, and including most of the world's Orthodox churches, scores of Anglican, Baptist, Lutheran, Methodist, Reformed churches, as well as many United and Independent churches. While a bulk of the WCC's founding churches were European and North American, today most member churches are in Africa, East Asia, the Caribbean, Latin America, Middle East, and the Pacific. There's the World Council of Churches website. The Roman cult is behind this. The World Council of Churches comes from the Roman cult. According to Wikipedia, the WCC was created in 1948 when the Faith and Order movement and the Life and Work movement organizations were merged, and the Roman cult was part of it. Faith and Order enjoys the full membership and participation of several other churches who are not members of the World Council of Churches, among them the Roman Catholic Church. I have many wonderful church friends who happen to be Catholic. History is full of examples of the Roman cult exterminating whole communities for heresy. This presentation should not take to reflect anything negative upon anyone who happens to be Catholic. The wearing of clerical dress, a religious habit by lay people or by members of the clergy, or religious orders by whom this use is forbidden by a definitive and legally valid directive of the competent ecclesiastical authorities and officially communicated to the state authority, is liable to the same penalty by the state as the misuse of military uniform. Clerical dress is a military uniform. These liars in court that wear those black gowns, that's a military uniform. The sovereignty and exclusive jurisdiction over Vatican City, which Italy recognizes as pertaining to the Holy See, forbid any intervention therein on the part of the Italian government, or that any authority over that of the Holy See shall be there acknowledged. That's the Lateran Pact, okay? Canada and U.S. have all adopted the Lateran Pact. Canada has signed on to it. Many other countries have signed on to it. Because of the bankruptcy, the government is owned and operated by Satan, literally. They have taken prayer out of the schools. They've taken God out of the schools. They've taken God out of the courts. And this one we already talked about. There are no Christian churches out there. They're not tax-exempt organizations, and that excludes 99% of the so-called churches out there. Now, Trump did an executive order recently that said that churches can come out and say what they feel like saying, or all of these tax-exempt organizations can, but they've had 50 years of training, so I don't think it means a hill of beans. The bent crucifix is a sinister symbol used by Satanists in the 6th century that had been revived at the time of Vatican II. This was a bent or broken cross on which is displayed a repulsive and distorted figure of the Messiah, which the black magicians and sorcerers of the Middle Ages have made use of to represent a biblical term, the mark of the beast. Yet not only Paul VI, but his successors, the 2 John Pauls, carried that object and held it up to be revered by crowds who had not the slightest idea that it stood for false Messiah. There's the picture of it. Citation. When you get stopped by the pigs, they give you a citation, a summons to appear, particularly to process in spiritual court. The ecclesiastical courts proceed according to the course of the civil and common law and canon law. Citation, the act by which a person is so summoned or cited in ecclesiastical law. The citation is the beginning and foundation of the whole cause. The process issued in probate courts of probate and admiralty courts. This is a citation where I filed a lawsuit in Texas. Courts ecclesiastical. Proceedings in ecclesiastical courts are according to civil and canon law by citation, libel, which is all admiralty, answer upon oath, proof of witnesses and presumptions, and after sentence for contempt and excommunication, that the sentence is disliked by appeal. Oh, yeah. Appeal is admiralty. Courts ecclesiastical, the great court of appeal in all ecclesiastical causes to the Privy Council in the 16th century of King Stephen. At the same period, Sir Henry Spelman observes that the civil and canon laws were first imported into England, but a few years later to obviate, this growing practice, the Constitution made at Clarendon. These are now the principal courts of ecclesiastical jurisdiction, none of which are allowed to be courts of record. No more than was another much more formidable jurisdiction, which is now deservedly annihilated. The Court of King's High Commission and causes ecclesiastical. Administrator. A person authorized to manage, distribute the estate of an intestate or of a testator who has no executor. In English law, administrators are the offices of the ordinary appointed to him by him in pursuance of the statute, and their title and authority are derived exclusively from the ecclesiastical judge. This is all ecclesiastical law. Articulous, an article or complaint written, exhibited by way of libel. Okay, that's admiralty. A libel is admiralty. Summoners, petty officers that cite and warn men to appear in any court. These ought to be boni homines, whatever that is. The summonators were properly the apparitors, who warned of delinquents at a certain time and place to answer any charge or complaint exhibited against them, and in citations from a superior court they were to be equals of the party cited. At least the barons were to be summoned by none other than the degree of knights. This is all titles of nobility. A libel, to proceed against, filing a libel, to seize under admiralty process at the commencement of a suit. A libel is admiralty. These Roman cult courts are all admiralty. Court of the ordinary. In American law, a court has jurisdiction over probate and wills and the regulation of management of decedents' estates. It's all admiralty. Impostors, those who falsely pretend an extraordinary commission from heaven, or terrify and abuse people with false denunciations of judgments, are punishable by the temporal courts with fine, imprisonment, and infamous corporal punishment. Well, they're all impostors. One who pretends to be someone else to deceive others, especially to receive the benefits of a negotiable instrument. That's what they get. They sell you into slavery. Inquisition is one way of proceeding in ecclesiastical courts. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Steemit at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. On YouTube, don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. On Steemit, don't forget to vote and make your comments. And I also have a real.video profile, and I have a BitChute profile. There's the front page of my YouTube channel. The subscribe button's already clicked, otherwise it'll be red. The bell has not been clicked. That's what the arrow is pointing at. And you click the bell and a pop-up will come up, and you have to check the box and click OK to be notified of uploads. This is Steemit. The left arrow is pointing at where you do your upvotes. The middle arrow is the number of upvotes, and the right arrow is where you make comments. And all of that is good on Steemit. This is Steemit. The hand is touching crypto wallet profile. A pop-up comes down, and you can follow or unfollow someone. A libel in spiritual court. If upon a libel for any ecclesiastical matter, it's always ecclesiastical. These people are Satanists, and they're assaulting you with their satanic law. Libel used in ecclesiastical proceedings consists in three parts: the major proposition, which shows the just cause, the narration, or minor proposition, and the conclusion. This is more about libels. This is all admiralty. This is all ecclesiastical law. That's these Satanists assault you with. Mark Passio is a former Satanist priest who has some YouTube videos about natural law. All of the atrocities in history were committed by order followers, according to Passio, and I think he's 100% right. Some of the pillars of Satanism: survival is the highest law of Satanism, moral relativism, no such thing as right or wrong. We just make up what's right or wrong. Gee, that sounds like a court case. Social Darwinism: certain classes of society think they're most fit to rule, postulates the survival of the most socially ruthless, ultimate responsibilities and self-preservation. It's all Satanism. Forms of mind control: eugenics, the elite get to determine who lives or dies. Order followers, responsible for all the atrocities in history, just follow orders without thinking about whether it's a lawful order or not. Willing slaves. Moral relativism: two-thirds of the people believe in moral relativism. Truth is relative. That means that two-thirds of Americans are practicing Satanists. An order follower is someone who's too stupid to know when they're receiving an unlawful command or not, cannot think for themselves, but needs someone to tell them what to do, as described by Mark Passio in his YouTube videos on natural law. Mark Passio rightly says that all the atrocities in history were committed by order followers in his YouTube channel, What on Earth? That's his YouTube channel. Got some great videos. World War II war crimes tribunals. All the Nazis claimed they were just follow orders. They either suffered death by hanging or spent the rest of their life in jail. Some of them are still hunted to this day. The Vietnam War, the My Lai massacre, they were convicted of murder. The Amistad, the story of the Amistad is a slave ship that the slaves captured the ship, but they didn't know how to sail, and so they went and kept one guy alive and killed everybody else and told him take him back to Africa. And the guy that they kept alive, they didn't know where he was going or anything, and he sailed in circles off the coast of Virginia until the U.S. Navy got him, and they got put on trial in the U.S. and they were charged with murder. And the argument was that if they're slaves, they're property and they can't commit murder any more than a dog or cat commit murder. And if they're not slaves, they were free men and they had every right to do what they did. And the court, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the court said they had every right to do what they did. Order followers, servants of evil, you assist an evil system most effectively by obeying its orders and decrees. An evil system never deserves such allegiance. Allegiance to it means partaking of the evil. A good person will resist an evil system with his or her own whole soul. Every great injustice has been in the hands of someone just following orders. That's what these Satanists do. Just following orders. There's some people that were just following orders. They turned in their guns, and this is what happens to them. And there's some of their order followers that are stealing their property. They figure they don't need the property anymore. They'll just take it themselves. I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior, and this lame attempt to abdicate personal responsibility should never be accepted as a valid excuse for such behavior. These order followers are everywhere. Humanity has a bad case of just following orders. There's a bunch of order follower pigs right there. Just because you do not take an interest in politics doesn't mean politics won't take an interest in you. When your government has all the guns, that's what happens. Okay, so make sure and turn your guns in when they come and tell you. Yep, turn your guns in, and this is what's going to happen. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Of course, he wants to make sure they can go ahead and murder you with impunity. The most dangerous place you can be in is in a gun-free zone. Gun-free zones where only criminals and tyrants have guns. There's a bunch of law-abiding citizens and brave soldiers doing their job. They're stealing the property, these law-abiding citizens, because they're obviously not going to need it anymore. There's a bunch more law-abiding citizens, a gun-free zone. There's a bunch more law-abiding citizens, a gun-free zone. There's a bunch more law-abiding citizens. We have grasped the great truth that it was not rifles, not tanks, not atom bombs that created power, nor upon them that power rested. Power depended upon public obedience and upon a willingness to submit. There's a bunch of law-abiding citizens, got their just reward. And there's a bunch more. This is all now. This is the criminals over in Syria that are murdering people, and so there's a bunch of law-abiding citizens and order followers. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. Why does the government want to ban semi-automatic rifles? Because they know you won't get into boxcars willingly. The only reason for disarming the people is to make them powerless against tyranny. We will take your guns because we have made an agreement to do so called freedom from war. Yeah, right, freedom from war. Yeah, where they kill everybody off, then there'll be no more war. China established gun control in 1935. From 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. These judicial whores intend that their brain-dead idiot, low intelligence, hired thugs assault us, kidnap us, and falsely imprison us because it's so good for business. If anyone has any doubt about that, check out Jordan versus City of New London, U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. The only way we'll ever get any real justice is to demand our common law jury of our peers, and we need to know what that is. A true common law jury does not take judges from some whore sitting on the bench. A true common law jury calls the witnesses and questions the witnesses. A true common law jury determines the law and the facts. A true common law jury can ignore any statute or law. A true common law jury will pronounce sentence, if any. A true common law jury is not subject to appeal, and it's called trial by jury, not trial with jury. What you see these days is trial with jury or a jury trial. It's not trial by jury. You want to place your future in the hands of the United Nations Roman cult whore who wants to sit on a bench and play stupid? You want to put your future of your wife and children in the hands of one of these judicial whores that have complete immunity no matter what? Because if you sue one of them, you have to get one of their whore buddies to do it. Sure, some of them want to do justice, but are you going to take the chance that you got a good one? And I'll bet you there's very few, and they're all Roman cult. They're all Satanists. You want to place your future in the hands of a whore that's bought and paid for by these crown pigs? You want to place yourself in the hands of a judicial whore that's intent on converting you into a ward of the court, which is an imbecile? You want to consider yourself Christian? Do you try following the golden rule? Do you treat others the way you want to be treated? Check out my other videos. Bankster Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 4. Do-it-yourself, how not to volunteer for the selected service in the draft. Martial law is here. Do-it-yourself, no income tax. Do-it-yourself, free mail. Kangaroo courts 1 through 15. Canada Border Pigs playlist. Bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain a little security will deserve neither and lose both. The United States is third in murders throughout the world. If you remove Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, and New Orleans, the United States is then 189th out of 193 countries in the entire world. Plus, all 5 cities have strict gun control laws. Wow, I like that gun, and I like that, my kind of girl. So dictatorship is here, and it's all voluntary. Quit volunteering. Carry common law credentials from NSCA or Catman1@gmail. Do not carry government-issued identification. Date of birth is hearsay. Do not give evidence against yourself. Name is hearsay. Do not give evidence against yourself. Address is hearsay. Do not give evidence against yourself. The French Revolution, a friend of mine did a bunch of research on that, and he said that what they did was when they were going to guillotine somebody, they'd take them up these stairs on the outside of this building and take them to the 2nd floor, and there'd be going this door, and there'd be somebody sitting there at a table with a book, and they'd say, please sign here. And after you signed, they went and guillotined you. And there's a lady on my group that was in prison, and she said that she refused to sign anything. They said, who are you? What's your name? And she said, if you don't know my name, what do you got me in here for? And she stuck to that, and eventually they kicked her out of there. The drive of the Rockefellers and their allies is to create a one-world government combining super capitalism and communism under the same tent, all under their control. Do I mean conspiracy? Yes, I do. I am convinced there is such a plot, international in scope, generations old in planning, and incredibly evil in intent. And that was Congressman Larry P. McDonald, 1976, killed in the Korean Airlines 747 that was shot down by the Soviets. Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at cops. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. The most dangerous place you can be is in a gun-free zone. Gun-free zones where only criminals and tyrants have guns. If the American people ever find out what we have done, they would chase us down the street and lynch us. And yeah, let's do it, you son of a bitch. Anarchy is no guarantee that some people won't kill, injure, kidnap, defraud, steal from others. Government's a guarantee that someone will. My history of the Jesuits is not eloquently written, but it is supported by unquestionable authorities and is very particular and very horrible. There, the Jesuit order's restoration in 1814 by Pope Pius VII is indeed a step towards darkness, cruelty, despotism, and death. I do not like the appearance of the Jesuits. If ever there was a body of men who merited eternal damnation on earth and in hell, it is the Society of Ignatius de Loyola. And that's John Adams, 2nd President of the United States. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the church. And that's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley, Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. Pope Francis on frantic quest to unite all religions under Rome. Yeah, how convenient. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Pope Francis and the United Religions Initiative. Pope Francis has encouraged a one world church. Yeah, they want a one world religion. That's what's coming, folks. Coming soon, one world religion. Talking about in the book of Revelations. Horror, death, evil, destruction, united one world government, and the new world order of Satan. There are three major stages for the new world order to be fully implemented. One world government, one world currency, one world religion. The first two components are already documented, admitted, and in the final stages. The one world religion is slightly more complicated to understand for most, but part of the preparation for the stage is the preparation and conditioning of the mind through the media, Hollywood, and music industry. Through symbols, subliminal messages, themes, they are setting the stage for our minds to accept the great deception of their false Messiah or Antichrist who will usher in the New Age one world religion. This is why the symbolism has become more and more frequent and blatant. We are very close. Vows in blood, branding with fire, Franciscan nun opens up about violence, torture in a convent. I listened to a YouTube video about a Catholic nun who went into a convent at 16 years old. The first thing that happens is the priest puts his arm around her and wants to take her to bed. Because she did not want to go to bed with the priest, her reward was penitence, self-inflicted torture. Exposed, Lucis Trust president speaks Satan, Lucifer, and the UN. This is Ishtar, pronounced Easter. Easter was originally the celebration of Ishtar, the Assyrian and Babylonian goddess of fertility and sex. Her symbols, like the egg and bunny, were and still are fertility and sex symbols. Or did you actually think eggs and bunnies had anything to do with the resurrection? After Constantine decided to Christianize the empire, Easter was changed to represent Jesus, but at its roots, it's all about celebration, fertility, and sex. Pope Francis, you're not welcome in Mexico. Protector of pedophile priests, Papa Francisco. Oh, that's all in Spanish. Right on. 8 million children go missing every year. Governments, the United Nations, and Vatican are trafficking these children to be raped and ritualistically murdered. Do you know why there isn't? Now you know why there isn't a war on pedophilia. Actually, the war has started with Trump. Yesterday, defendants Pope Francis Bergoglio, Catholic Jesuit Superior General Adolfo Puchan, and Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby were found guilty of rape, murder, torture, and trafficking of children. 5 judges of the International Common Law Court of Justice in Brussels determined that the crimes occurred as recently as 2010. Since last March, over 48 eyewitnesses have come forward to testify. The Ninth Circle Satanic Cult is said to do child sacrifices at Roman Catholic cathedrals in Montreal, New York, Rome, Scotland, London, Carnarvon Castle in Wales, an undisclosed French chateau in Holland, and at Canadian Catholic and Anglican Indian residential schools in Kamloops, British Columbia, and Brantford, Ontario. These people are diabolically evil. They are Satanists. The Ninth Circle Satanic Child Sacrifice Cult is believed to use privately owned forest groves in U.S., Canada, France, Holland for their human hunting parties for global elites, including members of European royal families. Teens were said to be obtained by the mafia, then stripped naked, raped, hunted down, and killed. The chief prosecutor stated the Catholic Church is the world's largest corporation and appears to be in collusion with the mafia, governments, police, and world courts worldwide. 2 adolescent women told the International Common Law Court of Justice Court that Pope Francis raped them while participating in child sacrifices. 8 other eyewitnesses confirmed their allegations of being witnesses to rape and child sacrifices. The Ninth Circle Satanic Cult is said to take place during the springs of 2009 and 2010 in rural Holland and Belgium. If you want to read this whole thing, pause the video. It just sickens me. Wanted alive, prosecution in the courts. Public notice of international citizens arrest. Bergoglio Jorge Mario. Okay, he's the pimp. Oh, here it is bigger. In the 1990s, Father Malachi Martin, a Catholic monk who was on Coast to Coast AM talk radio program with Art Bell, he said at that time that the Vatican was taken over by Lucifer in 1955. Father Malachi Martin died shortly thereafter under mysterious circumstances. Pope Francis was previously the Jesuit general, a black pope. Pope Francis is now talking about a one world religion. Baby bodies finally excavated at Tuam Mother and Baby Home. Over 800 babies and young children are believed to have died in the care of the Bon Secours sisters who ran the home from 1925 until 1961, roughly the equivalent of one child every fortnight. Again, these people are Satanists. Vatican endorses military force against ISIS. Remember, they have to get the Vatican to approve it. April 27th, 2014, the Vatican, Rome, and St. Peter's Square. This is a YouTube video. Pope Francis declares Lucifer as God. This is a YouTube video. This is, you go and look it up. You got the link up at the top of the screen. They're singing this in Latin, and the English translation is in red. It says, "His flames dawning his own creation. May I say, O Lucifer, who knows no setting, Christ your Son, who came back from the dead and shed his peaceful light to the human race, and is alive and reigns forever and ever." And they all say amen. Tupper Saucy wrote a book called Rulers of Evil about the Jesuits. I read it. It's a very good book. A good tree produces good fruit, and an evil tree produces evil fruit. What sort of tree is your life? The goal of the New World Order is one world leader, Revelation 13 and 7, one world government, Revelation 13 and 2, and Daniel 7, 4 to 7, one world religion, Revelations 13 and 8, and one world currency, Revelations 13, 16 to 18. It is going to get really, really ugly. We each need to do what we can to prepare for a worst case scenario. Our individual survival may depend on how prepared we are. Communists are everywhere. The Roman cult, these Satanists, are everywhere. The mainstream news media is full of communists. Communists have infiltrated into leadership positions in every major corporation on the planet. We need to know who the good guys are. Sheriff Richard Mack is a good guy. There's other good guys. American Citizens and Lawmen's Association is a good group of guys. Oath Keepers are good guys. All law enforcement agencies are full of communists. The Department of Homeland Security is full of communists. The Department of Justice is full of communists. Almost all educational institutions are full of communists. Almost every local jurisdiction is full of communists. Congress is full of communists. Every state legislature is full of communists. The so-called courts are full of communists. Communists are cowards and work in secret. Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana growing, whiskey drinking, tax evading rebels who left their beds at night, late at night, to shoot at the pigs. Original assault rifle, 1774, banned from import, 1775, British attempt confiscation, 1776, revolution. Armed citizens, the original Homeland Security. We don't need these border pigs. A free people ought not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from any who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government. War is when your government tells you who the enemy is. Revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. We, the people, need to be ready in case these communists get the other hand. It is going to get really, really ugly. When liberty and freedom are at stake, your silence isn't golden, it's yellow. 10 ways to screw the system. Shop local, boycott corporations and vote with your money. Grow a garden, eat organic, build your community around food. Become self-sustainable. Be independent in food, water, and energy. Protect the children, don't vaccinate. Medicate or mutilate kids. Go homeopathic. Use cannabis. Refuse prescription medication. Self-educate, homeschool, and always teach and speak truth to power. Make family priority number one. Families that eat together, stay together. Turn off the TV. Turn out the fear. Tune out the fear, propaganda, and disinformation. Return to nature. Abandon the city life and quit the rat race. Love one another unconditionally. Realize that we're all one. No army can stop an idea whose time has come. I have no country to die for. My country is the earth. I'm a citizen of the world, which consists of only one race, the human race. That's what they do. They divide and conquer, and the sooner we get onto their game, the sooner that their game will be up. It's divide and conquer. That's all they ever do. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.